Well, the world has still gone nutty, buddy, even downright buddy. Wish I missed the past, buddy, but there's still Buddycast. No, don't be naughty, go meet everybody here on Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful Thursday evening, or as we call it, Friday Eve. Everyone needs a Buddycast on Friday Eve, don't you? Don't you agree, Jason?
Absolutely.
Yep. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen, and this is my new buddy, Jason Dykstra. How you doing, Jason?
Doing great. Thanks for having me here, Nick.
I'm extremely honored to have you. I've been looking forward to this episode ever since I read your book. It's good. We're going to get a little blue here on Buddycast. Your book, Welcome to the Shit Club, it really made an impact. The majority of everyone who's seen Buddycast recently knows my journey, knows that we've suffered a pregnancy loss that was really close to us. We were far along and unfortunately just had a miscarriage, and it touched our hearts. And the best thing that I've learned through that journey, especially with Father's Day coming up this weekend, is just we're not alone. Mm-hmm. We're not the only ones on this earth that are doing it. Yeah, everyone's story is different, but we're not alone. And your book really proved that to me. Your book really proved that there are people out there that know to the bone what you're going through. Your book showed me the values of friendship. Your book showed me the difference between the friends that are like, there for you whenever something goes on, when something major goes on in your life, go to bad, and the true friends that truly know what you're going through. Yeah. So I just want to start off by thanking you for that book, thanking you for getting the word out there.
I appreciate that, Nick. I really do.
If you don't,
how to meet this way.
If you don't mind me asking, are you comfortable sharing about your lost journey, just to give our audience a little background?
Yeah, for sure. So we were expecting our third child, and the entire pregnancy was normal. Everything, all signs were pointing towards, healthy birth and all of that. And we were kind of creeping up to the due date, and we're kind of coming up really close to the due date. And we were pretty fine with that. The other two children had to be, kind of gently coaxed out of the womb that way. And so, yeah, we weren't too worried about any of that. And so we were just in this kind of phase of just kind of over the due date and doing basically daily tests at that point that my wife had to go in. And just the day before Ezra was born, she, had another one of those stress tests and ultrasound and everything like that. And all signs pointed towards, mom was healthy, baby was healthy, and everything along those lines. That was August the 12th. That morning I was at a leadership conference not too far from where we lived, and got that message of, hey, I think it's time to come home. And so I came home quickly and shuttled the two kids off to my in-laws and all of that. And it was something through that birth that that Ezra was born still. So born without breath. And as you can imagine, that set us off into a journey that we never expected, to be perfectly honest. And didn't even, to be completely frank, wasn't even on our radar that this is like a possibility. That was, it'll be 9 years ago this August.
Ooh. What do you do to commemorate the lost journey? Like, the lost anniversary? What do you do to commemorate those things?
Yeah, so we typically will go out for breakfast in the morning with the family, which always leads to some awkward conversation with the waitress or waiter of like, oh, so we out for a big celebration? It's like, kind of, but like.
I remember in your book, you said like your son saying the thing like, "I have a brother." Oh, that's nice. He's dead. Oh,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That awkwardness. Like he's dead. Oh,
Oh.
like,
Oh,
yeah.
get the bill.
Yep. Check, please.
Yeah. So we definitely, yeah, we do that every single year, and usually what we end up doing is either going and eating at the gravesite there, or we end up buying some balloons and stuff like that and kind of releasing them into the air. It's kind of been our tradition that way.
Wonderful. Wonderful. With Father's Day coming up, do you do anything on Father's Day that may be useful to some dads out there that are approaching the day as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just power in just speaking our children's names, right?
Mhm.
We have living kids or not. I've been working with someone lately who they recently lost their child, and this is their only child, right? And so they're kind of talking through, what do I do now? Like, what do I do for Father's Day? And I had to, I mean, maybe not remind him, but say you're still a father. Like, just because your baby isn't here doesn't make you any less of a father. You're just parenting in a very different way at this point, right?
Mhm.
And so I think there's so much truth to that as well. And so I think every father does it a little bit different, right? Every father
Right.
has their own kind of things that they like doing with their kids or with their family or whatever that looks like. And so I always just encourage people to talk with their spouse, talk with their partner. What is it that you're looking for? What is it like you're looking for me out of this day? And sometimes people don't know, right? They're like, I don't know how do we commemorate this day? Like, how do we celebrate? Seems like such a weird word to use, but like, how do we be present during this day? How do we actually show, what it's like to be a father in this day? And I think for some, that is going out for breakfast or having a picnic or doing the whole presents thing, or I think at the end of the day, I think it comes down to just our love language to a certain extent, right? Like, how do we give and receive love, and how do we like to be shown that we're appreciated, in whatever way that is.
That's truly amazing. And I'm going to take some of that advice this year, especially the love language part, just trying to communicate, okay, what do I want to do this year? Just what am I going to do this year? But from your lost journey, you didn't just stick in the dumps and just be like, woe is me. I'm, like just kind of like shove it deep down and never deal with it. You let it rise to you. You let it come through. And from that came loss advocacy and a book. Tell us what inspired you to get your word out and write a book.
Yeah, so I've been writing for a long time, and whether that was, just little silly blogs on the internet or for business. When I was younger, I did a lot of like poetry and like songs and short stories and that kind of stuff. And for me, it's really a way of just processing, because sometimes, and like Nick, sometimes talking about this stuff is really difficult,
Yes.
and it's hard to find the right listening ear sometimes. And so for me, writing is really cathartic and really helps me be able to kind of just process all of the stuff that lives in my head that I don't know what to do with. And so there was about a year after we lost Ezra, so almost exactly a year, actually, we had our fourth child, Nora, who was born, almost exactly a year later. And so fast forward a few months from there, and we were heading into November, and there's this like writing event that I'd heard about in the past, but never really paid much attention to, called NaNoWriMo. And basically the whole idea of it is write 50,000 words in 1 month. And that way you got most of a book. And so on October 31st, I remember texting my wife and being like, hey, I know life has been pretty crazy lately, but what do you think about me doing this? Like, I'm going to take the month. I'm going to try and write 50,000 words around this and just take the month and really just process it. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. Go do it. And so literally that's what I did, Nick. Every single day I would write a couple thousand words, and sometimes more, sometimes less. And it just all came just pouring out. And so for me, I never actually intended on writing a book. To be honest, it was kind of more meant for just me and my family, and actually sat on that book for a number of years before finally deciding, you know what, maybe it's time to release it. Maybe it's time to, work it into a actual book that, we can put up there for other people to hopefully be able to connect with in some way, shape, or form.
When writing the book, tell me about like the process. What was like the toughest part to write, the most impactful part to write, the part that like brought back the most memories? Just take me through your writing journey on that book.
Yeah. So, I mean, the most difficult for me was just writing about the birth and death of Ezra, and really like getting through that kind of first 3 days was really, really difficult, because it brings up so much, right? And so that was really, really difficult. I think the rest of it, there was almost a certain amount of joy to it. It really helped me look back at my own experiences in my own life to see how different things were kind of, whether, you believe they were put there on purpose or they prepared you for something, but there are things that, happened in my life that I'm like, thank goodness that actually I went through that, because that helped me to be able to deal with what I'm dealing with right now. And so there's just, what started as super painful, because I start the book kind of with that story of Ezra, became this just kind of journey of processing grief and loss, and what that experience was like, and really just kind of diving into being really intentional around, just that story and what that looks like and how we process it.
Was there a chapter that you favored the most, that like you'll pick up your book today and that's like something you can just scroll right to?
That's a good question. I think actually one that comes to mind is I tell this story about a guy named Evan, this kid named Evan. And so we were living in this little town, St. George, and this kid ended up having some sort of cancer that he ended up dying tragically from. But shortly before he did, like they found out, okay, Evan is going to pass away. He's probably not going to make it to Christmas. And his mom was like, I really want to give him one more Christmas. And so she approached all the, businesses in town and stuff like that and said, hey, can you help? Maybe we're just going to run through the main street, but maybe we could have all kinds of lights up and stuff like that. Maybe we'll do like a little mini parade kind of thing, right? And that caught wind throughout our little town. This little town, like 3,000 people, like nothing, to write home about. And on the day of that parade, they had floats on floats on floats. Like they had the police there, they had fire, they had freaking Santa there, like going around with Evan through the entire town, and every house throughout the town had lights on it. And it was just, there's something within it that just struck me of, here's this normal little boy, like, and was there anything really special about him? I mean, other than he was someone's child? Probably not, actually. And yet there was something about him that brought this entire town together. And I know that there are still people today that will put their Christmas lights up in October just in remembrance of him.
I remember that chapter. That stood out to me incredibly, because that showed me the power of community. That showed me what would happen when, even if it's for someone you have no idea who this person is, or you're just hearing their story for the first time, or even if it's someone you do know, like it's your neighbor, or it's your, or it's the kid that you see downtown all the time with his parents, and it's just the happiest kid you've ever met in your life. Just the power of community coming together for that special purpose. That really stood out to me. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, and I just mean, there's something about sharing ourselves with that community as well that helps bring it together, right? And it doesn't need to be anything big, or it's just a matter of showing up and being vulnerable and just being ourselves, right? And just saying, hey, I'm here, I could use some help, or this is what I have to offer you. And it's amazing what happens with community, of how they just step up to the plate, if you will, right? And I think that town that day, it was October and it was like rainy all day, I remember. And during that parade, not a single drop fell out of the sky. And it was just absolutely magical. Like it was Christmas that day.
That's beautiful, especially the weather story. If you don't mind, my honest favorite part of your book is when you got down to the truth. When you have a loss and everyone asks you the same, like the pamphlet questions, basically, how you doing? What do you need? What's on your mind? What's on your heart? Yada, yada, yada. And you kind of get, I hate to say it this way, you get numb at some points where you're just giving them that head nod, like I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm doing fine. But it's your best friends. You mentioned it in the book. It's your best friends. It's the friends that have known you your whole life or know the true you that go, all right, now how are you really doing? And don't give me this BS answer of like, oh, I'm fine or whatever. How are you really doing? Because those are the ones, my lifelong best friend, the night we lost Silas, our boy, I reached out to him. Just he was there because it was a week-long journey basically, and then it finally happened. And I reached out to him and just told him the news, and he was one of the first people to call me, check in on me, and he's like, "You better give me the truth. How are you doing right here, right now?" And I said, "If you want the God's honest truth, I'm ready to break down on this call right now. I'm ready to break down and cry."
Yeah.
And to learn, there's a quote from C.S. Lewis that says, "Friendship is born when one friend says to another, 'You too.'" I thought I was the only one. And my lifelong best friend, who I've known since kindergarten, I've been, he's been there for me through everything. I go to find out he's gone through the same situation as me. His wasn't as broadcasted and everything, but he knows exactly to the bone what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
So,
I remember, so two things with that. One is, my friend Russ, I remember him sitting on my back porch and we're sitting there, we're having a beer. He's like, "How's it going, Jason?" And so I went into when you get asked that question so much, and this too, Nick, you have a PR pitch basically, right? You just kind of go, "The kids are doing fine. My wife is doing fine, blah, blah, blah," right? And it's so rehearsed and so just like you've said it so many times, you can just do it without any thought, without any emotion, without any autopilot completely. It's like this out of body experience, right? Where you're just like hovering over yourself and you can just see your body and it's you, you're there in it, but you're just like, you're not there. Right. And so he patiently listened and sat there and listened. And then when I finally, exhausted myself from it or finished my, PR pitch, then he was like, how are you really doing? I was like, oh, damn. Right. I was like, oh, you see me. And this is a guy who is like a guy's guy. Like he's a heavy diesel mechanic. Like he is, tough as nails. And this is so out of his wheelhouse. And just for him to be able to sit there in that and just witness another person's pain, there's just something so absolutely beautiful about that.
100%. And like I said, it's those true friends. It's those true friends that know, all right, he's obviously just doing his thing. What about the real him? What's really going on in his life? And some of those people aren't even, can not even be lifelong best friends. Some of them can be people like you and me who just met today. This is the first time we're meeting. We've chatted through email and through social media, but this is the first time we're seeing face to face. So the one other thing I want to ask you about, I've got plenty more questions, but you're part of the dadvocate program with Guys in Grief. A little shout out to them, a podcast that helps grieving dads who have lost a child, who have lost, whether it's been infant or just regular life.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you got involved in the dadvocate program.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out too, Nick. No, there's some great guys that over at Guys in Grief that run the podcast there, and I think they're on their, maybe 4th season now or something along those lines. But they've had some good success with just, telling their stories and hearing from other people and their stories. And so they've attracted, an audience that comes to them when they need some of that help and need some of that advice. And they saw the need there, and they saw, within their community and the people that they had talked to on the show, that, hey, maybe we can get some of these guys to just talk with people. And it's not like therapy or coaching or anything along those lines. It's just, hey, I've been through something similar. I don't know what your experience is like. I know mine was shit. Like, how do I just journey alongside you so that maybe it's a little less shit for you? Right. And I think there's something about that. I remember, going back to work actually, and, this guy coming up to me and being like, hey, similar to what you're saying, Nick, like, I'd known this guy for a while, and he was just like, hey, we've been there too, like, me too. Right. And I think his exact words were, welcome to the club. It's a shitty club, but we're welcome to the shittiest club. That's what he said. Sorry.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could think of was, well, at least there's a club. Right? So a lot of ways, that's what the dadvocate program is just kind of sharing in that club, and just answering questions from people, sitting and listening to people, and just kind of taking it wherever they want it to go.
First off, I want to give a shout out to my dadvocate, Scott Stoops, who lives in Erie, Pennsylvania too. He has been a tremendous help. I signed up for once I heard about it, I signed up, found out there was someone in Erie, Pennsylvania who's who knows to the bone what I'm going through. And and you're right. You can ask these people anything. You can ask you guys anything, whether it's major questions like, hey, after the loss, what, if you found out, you were expecting again, something like that. What was it like? Or you can just ask them little things like, hey, how's your day going? Or how's, or like, did you hear about this on the news or something? Scott's been to me for everything. Like, I asked him the first Father's Day, which was, our loss was in April of last year. And, so fast forward a couple months to June, we're still fresh off the boat and everything. And I asked him, how did you get through the first Father's Day? And he's been flat out honest with me. He's like, it sucks. You're not, you think you're going to celebrate today, or you think you're going to do X, Y, and Z, but sometimes you just end up laying in bed all day. Yeah. Sometimes you just end up doing your own thing. Like, you just end up wandering off and doing your own thing. Like,
absolutely.
Let whatever happens happen. Don't fight anything. Don't fight any emotion. Just let it all happen.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's the reality of it as well, right? Is that we're going to have good days and we're going to have crap days. And I think especially early on, giving ourselves permission to have bad days. That's okay. We all do, right?
And that's one thing I truly wish people would understand about a loss, is that it's never like a period like, okay, you go through like a week of grieving or a month, and then you jump back into it. Like, you jump back into your regular stuff. You have days where you're doing fantastic, you're winning, you're succeeding at your job, you're doing all this, and then the next day, literally a song comes on the radio, and boom, everything you just built up just goes.
Yeah, just puddle.
Or like, just one little thing, like a cardinal flies by you or something, and you just go from this can-do attitude to, I think I'm gonna go home and take a nap or something. But that brings up a good follow-up question. When people have a loss, a lot of times they look for signs. They look from, if they're religious, they look for a sign from heaven. Or just a sign to remind them that everything's okay. Yeah. I honestly have to say I have two signs. Number one, I have seen at least 1 million cardinals since our loss. Did you not? One of them landed on a tree, and it's my phone background, and it's beautiful. Yeah. It honestly looks like a phoenix. Like, it looks like the description of a phoenix rising from the ashes. But number two, when we found out Silas was Silas, I'm a huge Elton John fan. I love the music. And when we found out Silas was Silas, I deemed him Rocket Man. I deemed him, that was my Rocket Man. That was he's going to do great things. He's a Rocket Man because he's going to do great things out of this world. If he's the next guy that travels to the moon or something, I wouldn't be shocked. And there was one day where a radio host of mine, I was driving my wife's car somewhere real quick, and she had on one of our local radio stations, and I know one of the hosts very well. And he goes, right as I turned on the car, the last few seconds of a song were playing, and he goes, "All right, that was such and such by so and so. Now here's a real treat for you. Here's Rocket Man by Elton John."
Mhm.
And I almost had to pull over. I was crying so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little shout out to, I know this is written backwards and everything, but a
Love
little
it.
shout out to my Silas, who's my Rocket Man with the cardinal as the eye.
Amazing.
That sits next to my desk every day and is my reminder for when I'm writing stories, for when I'm just doing Buddycast, no matter what. It's right here
Yeah.
for my thing. So what are some of your signs?
Yeah, so actually one of mine is a bird as well, is sparrows actually. I mean, I have them all over my arm as well. Yeah, there's just something about, I don't know, I always find that there's some sort of connection with nature often as well, right? Like I remember maybe a week after we lost him, and I remember just walking through town and seeing this, it wasn't like a shooting star. It was like this big thing, like colossal thing going across the sky. A couple of days later, I found out what it was, and I can't remember what it was now. Yeah, there's just something about the power of nature, right? And so for me, I feel like every now and then, like all of a sudden a sparrow will just appear at just like the time too, right? Where you're just like, you're thinking about them, or, you got different things going on, and all of a sudden all of your attention just goes to this thing, this sign, this bird, this, grasshopper or dragonfly, whatever it is, right? So I find like sparrows definitely show up for me very, very often. But I also find just, even especially at this point, I think in my journey, like there are just times that all of a sudden the wind hits me a certain way. And I think, oh, hey, buddy.
There's a cardinal right out my window right now where
Yeah.
with the bird feeders we have set up there. Every time I'm working at my desk in the morning,
Yeah.
I look out the window and I see a cardinal and I just go, "Hey, buddy."
Yeah.
Morning sign. Like,
Yeah.
just something beautiful. Actually, the one story I wanted to tell you was, on the 1 year anniversary, my dad and I planted a peach tree in the backyard because my wife makes a mean peach cobbler. If you're ever in Erie, stop on by. I'll treat you to a nice piece. You'll never want to leave. And we planted a peach tree, and about a month ago or so, he was on my mind. He was just, me and my wife were sitting outside. He was just on my mind, and just one of those random things you can't explain. Like you were saying, you don't know where it came from. There wasn't anything that triggered it. They're just on your mind.
Yeah.
And a cardinal lands right on his tree. And just stays there enough to get a picture. The minute I take a picture, it scatters off.
Yeah.
But it just lands right there. And I'm like, that was you. I know, buddy.
Yeah. There's just something about it, right? And I think if you remain open to it, you see your loved ones all over the place. And I mean, I have that with some of my living children as well. A song will come on. I'm like, oh, that reminds me of Zoe, or oh, that reminds me of Carson or Nora, right? Like, and I mean, same with Ezra as well, within all of it. And I think it's with him especially more because, you don't see him every day, right? And so it's those signs, I think, that at least for myself, I definitely look for them probably more often than not as well.
One thing I wanted to go back to, you offer grief coaching. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, grief coaching, really, it's, for, I think a lot of guys, especially, you hear the word therapy or counseling or something along those lines, and I think, not for me, thanks. And so I think coaching is kind of a good alternative that way. And coaching isn't, it's not therapy, it's not counseling, it's not tell me all about your parents and all of those different things. But it really has this kind of forward focus coaching. And often that means we need to dip our toes into the past and the painful moments so that we can kind of move towards the future, whatever that looks like. And that's going to look different for every single person. And so really it's around just journeying with people and just asking some good questions to help people to be able to process whatever it is that they're questioning or going through in that moment, so that they can kind of come out the other side. And I think one of the really cool things about coaching especially is that it sets up the person that's receiving the coaching as the expert, because they're the expert in their life, right? Like if you and I are coaching, Nick, you're the expert in your life. You know yourself vastly better than I know you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if we've been friends, since the beginning of time, there's still going to be things that you know about yourself that I don't know about you, right? And so I think, there's certain wisdom that we all kind of carry around with us. And sometimes we just need some questions to be able to brush some of that wisdom off. And I think at the end of the day, we know what we need to do, but sometimes it's hard to figure out what the right answer is. And so sometimes with a little bit of guidance, a little bit of, questions and just conversation that way, that we can kind of dust that off and figure out how to work, towards that thing.
Where can we find all the services that you offer? Where can we learn more about that?
Yeah, if you just go to jasondyk.com, that has pretty much everything there, and all the speaking and the coaching and things along those lines, different workshops. Yeah.
You said that was jasondyk.com?
That's right.
DYK. Give me 1 second here. I'm posting that in the comments for all of our buddies that need some encouragement, need some coaching, need to just reach out to you just to say hey.
Absolutely, and there's contact on there and whatnot as well that you can always send me an email or anything like that just to chat.
Perfect. Do you have any, with your writing, do you have any more projects on the horizon? Any books that coming out? Anything that you've just had on your mind planned or anything?
Not at this point. I mean, other than there's a couple of different workshop ideas that I have kind of tinging around in the back of my mind that way. But I think one of the biggest one is really just around doing more speaking and sharing more of this story and different pieces of it for different audiences. So that's really kind of the big thing, I think, for me coming up, is to really kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. And I do have a grief course that's really around how do we journey alongside people that are grieving. And it's a free course. Pay what you want. And from what I've been told, it's been pretty helpful for folks. So.
Ooh, that's perfect. And that's one thing I really think not just lost parents need, but like everyone needs. How do you deal with a friend that just had that major loss, even if it's not a child loss, you know, even if it's just something like, how do you deal with, even if it's like your best friend just lost their grandparent or something, or a parent, something that you've never been through before. Yeah. Like, how do you deal with that? How do you work through that with them, other than be as supportive as you can be?
Yeah. And I think it really comes down to, and I mean, the workshop goes through this kind of three phase model, if you will, of show up, shut up, and be present. And I think, there's, when we're able to show up in the first place, that's half the battle. Because I think, that's hard in and of itself, if we're being completely honest, because there's something about grief and loss that make us feel really uncomfortable. And so there's just the ability to be able to show up in the first place. You're already further ahead than probably, 50, 60% of other people that way. Shut up basically means, we don't actually have all the right answers all the time. And often people don't remember what it is that you said either. They remember that you showed up, that you were there, that you were present, that you were with them. They will remember if you say something really stupid. And anyone that's lost anyone can probably go through their Rolodex of things that people have said to them that have pissed them off and made them want to get violent, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, I've got it. We could all write a book on that, on how much
that could be an entire show in and of itself, Nick.
Oh, man.
Right?
Even things that people have said to my wife that have maybe been like, if I was there, you... Yeah. Like, you would... the term security would be needed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And people say the stupidest, most ridiculous things. And I think the difficult part with it is all of it comes from really good intentions as well. And so we don't want to punch them in the face because we know that their heart is actually like coming from a good place, right? And yet, because of whatever it is that they said, you're just like you're getting itchy, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's really around, shut up. It's not about the words that you have to say. And if you do want to say something, say something like, "This sucks. I'm here for you." Right. And then the last piece is just around being present. And that is really around, what's your relationship like with this person? And so are you, make a meal for the freezer kind of a person with, this individual? Or are you, I'm going to go help you pick up the tombstone kind of a person? Right. And so knowing where you're at within there, anticipating what the person that is grieving needs, so that you can be able to show up in a way that's going to be helpful for that individual.
With your coaching, do you find yourself dealing with a lot of things with like boundaries with people, like either how to set them or how to like handle that, like how to handle them, like if you're dealing with someone who's dealing with less, how to be bountiful, like how to be respectful of their boundaries? Absolutely.
And it's both, our boundaries and their boundaries, right? And how do we set them? How do we respect them? And how do we communicate them to one another? And when someone, sets a boundary with us, how do we deal with that? How do we hear what it is that they're actually saying so that we can come alongside them in that new way?
Love it. Love it. One thing I really, really, really is on my heart to ask you right now. Father's Day is coming up. What do you have to say to both your son, to Ezra, and to your living children? Like, what do you have to say to them on Father's Day? Like, give them a heartfelt message right here. Like you're recording a video message to them.
I mean, I think it would be simple in the sense of just saying, I love them. I'm here for them and I love them. And, you just tell me what it is that you need and I'll bend over backwards in order to provide it. Right. And I think that's the really difficult thing. I think for a lot of men, especially, we like to protect. We protect the things that we love and the people that we love. And this is an instance where, I wasn't able to protect my family from this loss. Right. And I really struggled with that for quite some time, to be perfectly honest, because there's something about that that's like, I didn't do my job. And yet there was nothing I could have done in that.
It wasn't your fault.
Right. I don't have that much power in order to protect. And I think that's where, in that way, I am continuing to protect my family in a lot of different ways, including my son, that's not even with us, just by being there for my children, for my wife, being the leader that they need within those difficult times, being that role model that they need around how do we actually process some of these things when life does get really, really difficult. Like, how do we work through that? And we're going to face things. All of us are going to face things that are really, really difficult. All of us are going to face grief and loss, whether that is the loss of a job or not making the soccer team or, getting dumped by our girlfriend or boyfriend. We're going to experience heartbreak and loss. And that includes losing our loved ones, our friends, our family, our children, perhaps even. And so how do we prepare them for that? That this is kind of a part of life. And just because they're not here with us every single day doesn't mean that we can't still have a relationship with them. And I know my living kids, they teach me stuff every single day. A lot of times about myself, and sometimes things that I don't want to see about myself, if I'm being completely honest. And I've been absolutely blown away by the things that Ezra has already taught me, just about me, about him, about life, really. And there's something within death that teaches us a lot about life.
Mm-hmm. You just reminded me of one of my favorite quotes, which is, if something makes you sad when it ends, it must have been pretty wonderful when it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you were also spot on with the protection thing. That's how I felt the entire time. Like, I just want to protect, me and my wife are little people. So a pregnancy for us isn't, a typical pregnancy. There's risks involved. There's this. So I always find myself trying to be that protector, whether it's intentional or not, but to be like the guardian, to be like the, joining her, like making the arrangements so I can be at that appointment, even if it's just a usual checkup, just to see if everything's going okay. Here's the heartbeat. Here's the sonogram of your baby. You saw this baby last week, but here it is again.
Yeah.
Like, just making sure that I'm there.
Yeah.
And everything, and just like being the protector, like holding her hand until we hear the noise and we see the image, and be like, after that, it feels like your armor just falls off, and it's like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like
again, right?
That frank little moment. That brings up another question. If you don't mind me asking, if you don't want to answer this, that's totally fine. But after your loss, you mentioned you have another child after your loss. You have a rainbow baby.
Mm-hmm.
What was the process like for you? What was that journey like for you, with the extra level of concern and everything?
Yeah, it was terrible, being honest. It was stressful. It was anxiety filled that entire year. It was all the other pregnancies and children, like, we would tell people right away and tell the internet. And like when we were expecting Ezra, like, our freaking gas station attendant knew, like, that we were having a child, right? Which also becomes part of the difficulty in the days and weeks after, is that you're still going to run into all of these people that you have told, and every single one is going to be like, so, like
how's it going?
Yeah,
you just have to be the
yeah, right. And so how do you tell that story to all of these different people without being a complete basket case, or at least feeling like one, right? But yeah, it was really painful, to be honest, because that's exactly what anxiety is, right? Is take your mind taking you to the worst possible scenario. And I think one of the difficult parts for me with losing Ezra is that wasn't even on my radar. Like, I thought I had already, like, I have a PhD in like anxiety and worry. And the fact that wasn't even on my mind for the next one, I was like, my word, like, what am I missing? Like, if that can happen, what else, right? And so my mind would just spiral to the place where, and I thought, to be perfectly honest, I thought I was dealing with it really, really well. I thought I was, almost winning this game of grief, if that makes sense, right? Like, I'm ticking all these boxes and everything. And about just over a month before, so it was actually around this time of year, actually, just moving into July, early July. And I just finished up with a particularly difficult client group that I was working with, and which was already kind of stressing me out. And then, anticipating another child, all this kind of stuff. We ended up going up to the cottage, and got up to the cottage, and I was like, oh, my back is in pain. And I got like all these spots on my back, and thought I was having an allergic reaction to something. And my wife was like, you should probably see the doctor, like, when we get back. So I just kind of hopped myself up on Benadryl for the week, basically. And like, it was the moment I sat down and just rested that all of a sudden, like, it all came out. And I went after our vacation, we got back and went to the doctor, as I was told. And my doctor was just like, so you've been under a lot of stress lately? I was like, yeah, why? She's like, because you got shingles. This was not an allergic reaction. This was shingles. And this is your body's way of telling you, like, you gotta pay attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta slow down.
Mm-hmm. Not comparing journeys or anything, but the week that we lost Silas was a week from hell for us, because my wife's water broke the day before the eclipse, the big solar eclipse that happened on like this side of the world.
Yeah.
And after that, you throw in a bat in our bathroom. You throw in a kidney stone for me, which just started as like the side pain. Her parents were in town, and it was just a random evening, a Sunday evening, and I just got like this side and back pain, and I thought nothing of it. Maybe I just like tweaked something or whatever, and it just progressed to the point where I was laying in my bed in like the evening in a fetal position, just like I finally cracked and called my mom and said, "Hey, something's not right." And my mom could just tell from like that, those few words, "Something's not right."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Yeah, you don't sound like yourself. I'm coming over and picking you up." So we went to the hospital, and like you said, we're thinking worst case scenario. I'm thinking it's my appendix, it's this, it's that.
Yeah.
I'm gone. And I described my symptoms, and because I basically described it as I feel like I'm being stabbed in the side, kicked in the groin, with punched in the back, all while holding in the biggest gas bubble you've ever held in your life. And the doctors are like, "Yeah, that sounds like a kidney stone." Lo and behold, it was all that giant pain from just this little thing. And
Yeah.
that honestly, yeah, so throw in all that and then 2 days later, I'd say it this way, the grand finale, the cherry on top of the shit ice cream, you know?
Yeah. Just a week from now.
It was one of those, you know how people, when they're going through situations like this, they really don't want to look up and say two specific words that start with a W and N.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was really that much. Like, it was like I wasn't even saying those words, but like someone was like putting those words in my mouth and going like, "What next?"
Yeah.
Like it was that scary. But I want to end this episode on some positive notes. Let's focus on some happy notes. I'm going to ask you 2 questions that I ask all my buddies that come on the show. First off, you're not a guest. You're a buddy. And part of being a buddy, I want to know, how do you define what it means to be someone's buddy?
Yeah, I think it's just showing up for people. It's not showing up with an agenda or anything like that. It's there to just be there and be real and be present, right? To whatever is going on for that individual. And there's something about just holding that space, I think, that is what creates a buddy, right? Exactly what you've been doing this entire time, of just holding that space, right? And just showing up as yourself. I think that's me as a buddy.
Wonderful. I love that definition. Now, what we have now is what's called the Ultimate Buddycast Buddy Question. Are you ready for this one? For you?
I think so.
For you, I'm going to split this into 2 parts.
Okay.
The first part is for anybody right now who's dealing with a loss, whether it's happened yesterday or whether it happened 20 years ago. What's your ultimate advice to them? Like, what's one big thing that you can just give them right now to help them through their journey?
I think one of the biggest things is that just to be where you are, right? If you're in a spot where, whether you're a year in or whether you're 20 years in, these waves are going to come. And so, there's something about the more that we try to resist those waves when they come, we actually work against ourselves. And it's tiring and it's exhausting, and we just end up trashing ourselves. And so this is obviously easier said than done, but when we just kind of let it come to us and sit with it, so that it can tell us what it needs to. There's something beautiful about that, and just being able to release it back to wherever it needs to go, right? And so I think really just being where you are, and if it's a hard day, then it's a hard day. That's all right. And there's a certain amount of acceptance that we can have with that. And if it's a great day, it's a great day, right? We don't need to feel guilty about that either.
No, not at all. Not at all. Some days you win, some days you lose.
Yeah.
But it's all about just dealing with it. Like you said, just letting it happen, if it's a great day, don't feel guilty. If it's a negative day, don't feel like you have to push through or be like
Yeah.
in a smile on your face to get through the day.
Yeah. Just create space for whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. The final question I have for you, you've touched on it throughout the episode, but kind of give us a recap or give us your real ultimate advice since Father's Day is coming up this weekend. What advice do you have to lost dads out there?
I think the biggest advice, I was actually asked this just the other day from someone as well, having a conversation. And the first thing that popped into my mind was find your floaties. And what I mean by that is, when we're thinking about the water, I don't know if you ever learned how to swim at all, Nick, but when they did, they don't just throw you into the deep end, right? Like they put you in the shallow end. They have a little table there that everyone kind of stands on, and the teacher will kind of take you one by one. And one of the first things they actually show you how to do is float. Because when you learn how to float in the shallow end, if all of a sudden it becomes too much, then you can just stand up, right? Whether you're on the table or whatever. But when you start to figure out, okay, this is how I float, floating in the shallow end and floating in the deep end there's actually no difference. Floating is floating, right? And so when start traveling into the deep end, both, literally and figuratively, and we start to get tired, because we will, then we can float. And so there's a lot of different ways that we can float, especially in 2025 now. We can get a life jacket. We can get one of those little blow up things that put around. We can get water wings, whatever it is, right? And so I think, being aware of what our floaties are, and especially within grief. So what are those things that bring you back, or at least closer to your baseline, that are actually healthy, right? Because I think a lot of us will turn to drugs, we'll turn to alcohol, we'll turn to eating, we'll turn to like some of these vices that are not in the long run actually helping us in any way, right? And especially not helping us to actually be able to process whatever it is. And so what are those floaties that just kind of bring us back to our baseline? And so whether that is meditation or centering prayer, whether that's turning on stand-up comedy and laughing a little, whether that's gardening or working on a car or doing some writing, or whatever that is for you that you can do in some of those different moments. Maybe that's listening to Rocket Man or something along those lines, right? That you're like, okay, I just feel like I'm back in my skin again. And that can help us. And I think, for anyone that has living kids that you've seen them deal with difficult things, you'll see that they dip their toe into the sand, and when it gets too much, they come right back out, right? And that's them finding their floaties, finding what works for them. And I think especially in this work, we need to go into the deep end of it. And so we need to make sure that we bring all of our floaties with us, so that when it becomes too much, because at times it will definitely become too much, that we can use those floaties so that we are sufficient, so that we are, able to do the hard work in a way that's going to work for us. Find
your floaties. I love that advice. Find your floaties and know when, hey, this is just too much. This is just what, this is just listen to yourself, basically.
Yeah.
I love it. Jason, it was an honor talking to you tonight. You helped me so much. You're going to help so many people with this episode. We're getting a lot of love. We're getting a lot of, comments and everything. A lot of people are tagged in the comments for who might need to hear this. So thank you. Thank you a million for being a buddy on Buddycast.
Oh, thank you so much, Nick, for having me.
Of course, you are welcome back anytime. But Jason, before we end this episode, I have one favor to ask you. And I ask this to all my buddies that come on Buddycast. Whatever you do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, even next year, promise me you're going to go out and you're going to go be someone's buddy.
You bet, sir.
All right, for all my buddies out there, this is my buddy Jason. Please look him up. Let me put your website up there again real quick. Give me 1 second. There we go. Look him up. See how he can help you. See how he can help you, just like he helped me tonight. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. This episode is in memory of my boy Silas, my rocket man, blessed by Silas. Thank you for being buddies here on everybody's favorite show.
Well, the days are going fast, buddy, we've got to make them last, buddy, before they've all gone past, buddy, tune in to Buddycast. But don't feel like it could make it, buddy, here on Buddycast.